Before we dive into the dark secrets of Rikers Island, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, how far would you go to survive behind bars? It started with blood on the floor and ink on the skin. The tattoo wasn't new. It was worn, faded, and burned into the arm of a man everyone inside Rikers only called Ghost. But that ink, a small 13 coiled inside a black spider web, was enough to make the entire cell block freeze. It wasn't just a tattoo. It was a declaration of loyalty to one of the most feared prison gangs in New York. The guards knew what it meant. The inmates really knew what it meant. That number was more than a symbol. It was a message. And when Ghost showed it, another inmate, fresh from Brooklyn, realized too late what he just walked into. Within minutes, shouts erupted, metal clanged, and chaos swallowed the tear, all over a mark that couldn't be erased. That was the night Rikers went on lockdown. And for the next 72 hours, the entire facility was boiling under silent tension. Guards searching arms, backs, and chests, looking for marks that told stories words never could. Each tattoo became a clue, a code, a weapon of identity. But the shocking part? The tattoos weren't just gang marks anymore. They were maps, hidden messages inked into flesh, revealing alliances, betrayals, and the violent order that ruled Rikers from the shadows. As investigators dug deeper, they realized one horrifying truth. The tattoos were part of a system that even the correction officers couldn't fully control. They connected men in different blocks, different boroughs, even outside the prison walls. But before this night of blood and silence, before Ghost's tattoo started a war, there was another man, Marcus Tone Alvarez. He wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't a killer or a soldier. He was just trying to survive his time and make it out alive. And yet, the moment he stepped into Rikers, his skin became a target. Because inside those walls, your ink decides your fate, and Tone was about to find out what happens when you were the wrong mark in the wrong place. To understand the war that started with a tattoo, we have to go back to the day Marcus Alvarez first walked through the gates of Rikers Island. The first thing Marcus Tone Alvarez noticed when he stepped off the bus at Rikers Island wasn't the razor wire or the gray concrete. It was the silence. Not the kind of silence that feels peaceful, but the kind that makes the air thick, like the place itself was holding its breath, waiting to see who would break first. He'd been sentenced to 6 years for armed robbery, though he swore the gun wasn't his. It didn't matter. In Rikers, innocence is just a rumor that no one believes. He walked through the metal detectors, chains clinking around his wrists, past correctional officers who looked at him like another number in a never-ending cycle. The smell hit next, sweat, bleach, and fear, mixed into a scent that clung to everything. The moment he entered his unit, eyes followed him from every direction. Some curious, some predatory, most unreadable. Rikers wasn't just a jail. It was a microcosm of New York streets, with every gang, crew, and corner claiming its own territory behind bars. The Bloods, Crips, Latin Kings, Trinitarios, MS-13, each had their symbols, codes, and tattoos that spoke louder than any words could. Tone didn't have any tattoos, and that made him a problem. In a place where ink was identity, being blank skin meant you belonged to no one. And in Rikers, no one is dangerous. His cellmate, an older Puerto Rican man named Rico, saw the fear in his eyes that first night. "You ain't marked," Rico said, lighting a makeshift cigarette. "That's a blessing and a curse. You stay clean, they think you soft. You get marked, you gotta live by that ink. Either way, Rikers don't forget." Tone tried to keep his head down, but in a place where reputation meant survival, neutrality wasn't an option. The gangs ran everything: food trades, contraband, phones, even guards. You wanted protection, you pledged loyalty. And that loyalty was sealed with a tattoo. A week in, one of the Bloods approached him in the rec yard. The man was built like a tank, a red bandana tucked into his waistband, his arms a tapestry of ink, skulls, numbers, and the unmistakable UBN across his knuckles. "You from the Bronx, right?" he said. "You ride with us now. Ain't no free men in here." Tone hesitated, but before he could answer, the man smiled coldly. Don't worry, we'll get you your mark. That night, they came for him. 2 lookouts at the door, one with a sharpened toothbrush handle, the other holding a piece of wire glowing from a hidden lighter. The air smelled of burnt plastic. Tone tried to fight, but resistance in Rikers only made things worse. The wire pressed against his skin, sizzling flesh as they etched the blood's symbol into his shoulder. An initiation he didn't want, for a family he never asked for. When it was over, they told him to look in the cracked mirror. The tattoo was crude, swollen, bleeding, but unmistakable. He was one of them now. Over the next few weeks, Tone learned the true meaning of the ink that covered so many arms and faces around him. Tattoos weren't decoration. They were declaration. A teardrop could mean loss or murder. A spider web showed time served. Numbers told which gang you owed allegiance to and where your loyalty lay. But the most dangerous tattoos weren't the obvious ones. They were the hidden marks, the ones inked under sleeves, on ribs, behind ears, small symbols that carried secrets of rank, smuggling routes, and alliances that stretched all the way back to the streets of New York. Tone realized that every tattoo inside Rikers told a story. Stories of pain, betrayal, and power. And some, like ghosts, were worth killing for. Late one night, Tone sat on his bunk, tracing the fresh scar on his shoulder when he heard footsteps outside his cell. A shadow stopped at his door. It was Ghost, the same man whose tattoo had sparked a riot days earlier. Ghost looked at him for a long time before saying in a low voice, "Nice ink. But you don't even know what that mark really means, do you?" Tone didn't answer. Ghost smirked. "You just got branded with a death sentence, rookie. That symbol ain't Blood's no more. It's a lie. Someone's been using it to start a war." The door slammed shut, and that was the moment Tone realized his tattoo wasn't a shield. It was a target. By the 3rd week, Rikers had become a pressure cooker ready to explode. The air hummed with tension. Every stare lingered too long. Every whisper carried the weight of accusation. The tattoos that once marked belonging were now fueling chaos. Gang lines were blurring, loyalties cracking, and someone, no one knew who, was using those same symbols to spark war between inmates who had once shared the same code. Tone's shoulders still throbbed from the fresh tattoo that branded him as Blood. He could feel it burning beneath his shirt, a scarlet flag for anyone looking to test him. But after Ghost's words, that mark felt less like protection and more like a curse. He had no idea what Ghost meant. How could a tattoo be a lie? 2 days later, he found out. The lockdown had just lifted. Inmates flooded the corridors, moving in cautious silence, trying to act normal. But something was off. Tone noticed it first in the rec yard. A group of Bloods were circling another inmate, a wiry guy with a spider tattoo crawling up his neck. One of the Bloods shouted, "You run in false ink," before swinging a sharpened shank. The yard erupted into chaos, guards yelling, sirens wailing, inmates hitting the ground. When it was over, the man with the spider tattoo lay bleeding on the concrete. The rumors spread fast. Someone was replicating the Blood's tattoos and giving them to other gangs. The marks that once united were now dividing. Back in the cell, Rico leaned close to Tone and whispered, "They say Ghost started it. He's been inking fake symbols, mixing signs from different sets, trying to expose who's real and who's frontin'. That's suicide in here." Tone couldn't believe it. Why would he do that? Rico shrugged. Maybe he's cleaning house. Maybe he's working with the COs. Or maybe, just maybe, he's got his own agenda. That night, Ghost found Tone in the laundry room, the only place where cameras didn't reach. His arms were covered in fresh lines of ink, each new mark darker than the last. The old spider web had been extended, now wrapping around his forearm like a black net. "You think that tattoo on your shoulder means you're one of them?" Ghost said, his tone half sneer, half pity. "It doesn't. The Bloods inside, Rikers, don't answer to the streets anymore. Someone hijacked their symbols. I'm hunting the ones who did." Tone stared at him. "So you saying someone's faking tattoos just to start a war?" Ghost nodded slowly. "They're marking inmates like cattle, Bloods, Crips, Kings. Doesn't matter. If you got the wrong symbol, you're done. These fakes are being made right here in Rikers." Someone's running an underground tattoo shop, printing death sentences one line at a time. Tone's stomach twisted. He thought about the night they'd branded him, the smell of burning flesh, the way the man holding the wire smirked. What if his tattoo wasn't real? What if it was one of the fakes Ghost was talking about? Before he could ask, a loud bang echoed down the hall. The fire alarms blared, and red lights flooded the room. Ghost grabbed him by the collar. "Find Rico. Don't trust anyone without proof of their ink. And whatever you do, don't let them see that shoulder." Guards rushed through the corridors as inmates screamed and banged on their cell doors. Another riot had begun. Tone and Ghost slipped into the shadows, the sirens screaming above them. As they moved through the chaos, Tone caught glimpses of tattoos under flickering lights, blood-red teardrops, black webs, crosses, crowns, each one a language of violence. But now, that language had been corrupted. Somewhere in Rikers, someone was rewriting the code. And if Tone didn't figure out who, his skin and his life would be the next message. By the next morning, Rikers Island felt like a war zone. The guards had sealed every block, food service was halted, and the yard was off limits. Smoke from the overnight fire still hung in the air, mixing with the chemical sting of disinfectant. Tone hadn't slept. His mind kept circling back to Ghost's warning. Rico's voice snapped him out of it. "You need to see something," he said, sliding a folded scrap of paper under the bunk. Tone unfolded it. Inside was a rough sketch of a tattoo. His tattoo. Only the symbol wasn't what he'd been told it was. The blood's 5-point star had been subtly altered. The lines curved inward, connecting to form a hidden insignia, a small S beneath the web. Rico whispered, "That ain't blood. That's Silent Syndicate." Tone's stomach dropped. The Silent Syndicate, a ghost network rumored to operate inside Rikers, connecting inmates, guards, and outsiders in drug and weapon trafficking. Most said it didn't exist, but now it was carved into his flesh. Before Tone could respond, a loud buzz echoed through the block. Cells opened for the morning count. Ghost was nowhere in sight, but Tone caught a glimpse of another inmate across the tier, an older man with tattoos crawling up his neck. On his collarbone, half hidden by his shirt, Tone saw the same S symbol. The man met his gaze and gave a small nod before disappearing into the crowd. Tone and Rico followed discreetly as the inmates shuffled toward the cafeteria. The man with the symbol sat alone, picking at his food like he was waiting for someone. Tone took a seat nearby. "You got the same ink," Tone said quietly. The man's eyes flicked toward him. "Then you already know too much." "I don't even know what it means," Tone replied. The man smirked. "That's the point. Most people don't. The Syndicate's not a gang. It's a market. The tattoos? They're not loyalty marks. They're delivery codes. The designs change weekly. One line, one nut off, and you're dead. It's how we move product through guards, laundry, kitchen, even mail." Tone's chest tightened. "You're saying my tattoo's a shipment tag?" The man leaned closer. "You were the mule, kid. The ink they burned on you? It means you were carrying something. You just didn't know it." Tone's blood ran cold. The contraband, the phone, the pills, the smuggled items they'd found after the riot. It all made sense. Someone had used him as a pawn. And Ghost, the man who'd been hunting fake tattoos, might have been the only one trying to expose the whole operation. Before Tone could ask more, guards swarmed the cafeteria. Someone shouted, "Contraband search." Tables flipped. Inmates hit the floor. In the chaos, the man with the S mark slipped something into Tone's hand, a tiny piece of paper wrapped in plastic. Tone hit fast. Hours later, back in his cell, he unfolded it. It was a coded message, numbers and symbols scrawled in microscopic handwriting. Rico glanced over his shoulder. "That's not a message," he said. "That's a map." Tone stared at the paper, realizing it wasn't just about tattoos anymore. It was about control, who ran Rikers from the inside. And that symbol on his skin wasn't a mistake. It was an invitation. That night, Ghost finally appeared again, bruised and bleeding. "You were supposed to stay clean," he said. "Now you're marked by the Syndicate. They'll come for you before dawn." Tone's heart pounded. "Then help me stop them." Ghost hesitated. "You don't stop the Syndicate. You expose it. But to do that, you need to go where they can't touch you, the isolation wing. Tone frowned. That's solitary confinement. Ghost's eyes darkened. Yeah, and the only way in is to start a fight bad enough to make the COs fear you. Tone looked down at the mark on his shoulder, the one that had cursed him since the day he arrived. He clenched his fists. If the only way out was through the fire, then he'd burn the whole system just to see who was watching. The next morning, he walked into the mess hall and picked a fight with the biggest man he could find. As the guards tackled him to the ground, alarms blaring, Tone smiled through the blood. He wasn't losing control. He was getting closer to the truth. Because deep inside solitary, beyond the cameras and the chaos, waited the man who designed the tattoos that ran Rikers Island. And Tone was about to meet him. Solitary confinement was nothing like Tone imagined. No laughter, no arguments, no rattling chains. Just 4 gray walls, a steel toilet, and a constant hum of fluorescent lights. Time lost meaning. Minutes stretched into hours, hours into days. But Tone's mind raced faster than ever. The coded paper ghost had given him burned in his pocket like a secret he couldn't ignore. By the 3rd day, the guards brought in a new inmate, one no one had seen before. He was short, wiry, and had tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves, tiny, intricate symbols that made Tone's stomach knot. Ghost had warned him that the architect of the Syndicate's tattoo network was inside Rikers, but seeing him was different. The man's eyes scanned the cell like he already knew everything about Tone. "You've got the mark," the man said casually, as if stating the obvious. Tone froze. I didn't ask for it." The man smiled. "Doesn't matter. You carry it. That means you're in play. You want to survive? You follow me." Over the next days, Tone learned the terrifying scope of the operation. The Syndicate wasn't a gang in the traditional sense. It was a network that ran smuggling, extortion, and information across multiple blocks. Tattoos weren't just identifiers. They were tools for communication. Tiny variations in a line, or that could mean life or death, orders for a hit, or a warning to avoid someone. Tone realized that every tattoo he'd seen in the yard, on the arms and chests of hardened men, wasn't random. Each was part of a carefully controlled map of power inside Rikers. And Ghost had been trying to dismantle it from the inside, but even he couldn't reach the man now sitting across from Tone, the creator, the designer, the kingpin of ink. "This is how they control men," the man said, leaning back. "A tattoo tells your story before you speak. It says where you belong, who owes who lives and who dies. One wrong mark, and you're a target." Tone's heart pounded. Why me? Why brand me with their symbol? The man's eyes narrowed. "Because you're a blank slate. Someone like you can be shaped, manipulated, used to test the system. And you did exactly what they expected. You bled, you feared, you obeyed. But now you're awake, and that makes you dangerous." Ghost had warned Tone about the death sentence in his shoulder, but nothing could have prepared him for the truth. His tattoo was a chess piece in a game so large, he couldn't even see all the players. The Syndicate's reach extended beyond Rikers, into Brooklyn, Queens, and even into the courts and law enforcement. Tone's resolve hardened. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was going to fight back. The breakthrough came when he noticed a pattern in the coded paper. It wasn't random numbers, it was a schedule. Routes for contraband, times for exchange, even a list of guards who were unknowingly complicit. He slipped the paper under the cell door to Ghost's block. Ghost read it quickly, eyes widening. "This could bring the Syndicate down," he said. "But you're walking a tightrope. One wrong move, and every mark on your body becomes a tombstone." Tone's chance came sooner than expected. During a routine yard period, a Bloods member approached him, hand twitching toward knife. Tone moved, dodged, and used the momentum to throw the man to the ground. The fight drew the attention of every guard and inmate in the yard. Chaos erupted. Exactly what Ghost had said would happen. Amid the screams and the clang of metal, Tone slipped away, hiding in a shadowed corridor. He reached a small vent near the laundry, and there, Ghost was waiting. "You've started the chain reaction," Ghost said, grinning. "They won't see it coming." For the first time since his arrival, Tone felt a surge of control. The tattoos that had branded him, cursed him, and made him a target were now tools. Each symbol, every line, became a weapon to unravel the network from the inside. But even as they plotted, Tone couldn't shake the fear gnawing at him. The syndicate's creator was still free, still in the prison, still watching. One wrong step, one misread symbol, and all of Rikers could ignite in blood again. Tone touched the tattoo on his shoulder, feeling the raised lines under his fingertips. That mark had nearly killed him, but now it might just save him. And deep inside, he knew the final confrontation was coming. The final showdown began in the dead of night. The prison was quiet, except for the occasional clang of a metal door and the distant hum of fluorescent lights. Tone and Ghost moved through the shadows, carrying the coded papers and the knowledge of the syndicate's network. Every step was calculated. One misstep could alert the syndicate's eyes inside Rikers, the people who had controlled the tattoos, the secrets, and the fear. They reached the laundry room, the underground hub where the fake tattoos were being made. The smell of ink, bleach, and sweat hung heavy. And there he was, the creator. Short, wiry, eyes cold, and covered in tattoos that mapped the chaos of Rikers itself. Tone stepped forward, every muscle tense. "It ends tonight." The man laughed, a chilling sound that bounced off the gray walls. "You think you can stop this? This isn't about you. It's bigger than any single inmate, bigger than Ghost, bigger than Rikers itself." Ghost's eyes narrowed. "Maybe, but tonight, your network dies here." A fight erupted. Fists, pipes, and improvised weapons clashed in a brutal symphony of rage. Tone felt the sting of blood on his knuckles, the pain in his shoulder where his own tattoo had been branded. Each strike was a statement, a rebellion against the system that had tried to own him. Finally, the syndicate's creator faltered. Ghost disarmed him, holding him down as Tone tore the coded papers from his pocket. "Every mark you made, every fake tattoo, every death sentence you issued, it's all documented now. The cops, the wardens, they're going to see it." The man's eyes widened. The power in his tattoos, in the network he controlled, had been undone by the very symbols he used to enslave men. By dawn, Rikers Island was quiet again. Guards discovered the underground tattoo operation, the coded papers, and the man who had once seemed untouchable. The syndicate's network was exposed, fractured, and under investigation. Tone sat on his bunk, tracing the raised lines on his shoulder, the same mark that had been his curse, now a symbol of survival. He had survived Rikers, outsmarted a criminal mastermind, and lived to see the tattoos that had once been death sentences turn into evidence. But the lesson remained clear. In Rikers Island, ink isn't just art. It's power, control, and danger. And the wrong mark can cost you everything. So, if you ever wonder what it's like inside America's most notorious jails, remember this story. Tattoos in prison aren't decoration. They're currency, codes, and sometimes the difference between life and death. And before you go, make sure to hit like, smash that subscribe button, and share this story with everyone you know. Because the world inside Rikers is dark, deadly, and full of secrets, and you never know whose tattoo tells the next story.